signature or something. Right.
Where did you park at?
In front of the Calvert place. I thought of, just stepping out, one of the barriers. Parking, what do you mean? What do you mean? Stuff is, and I'm not usually worried about the 2-hour limit when I'm out there, but at 3 o'clock, maybe we should take a break so we can all move our cars.
Well, I parked in the city employee parking lot.
Oh, well, hey, okay.
Okay.
I mean, that's an option if there's an open.
Usually I take Christina's parking spot. She's like, sure.
Okay.
Can we put it up there or do you want me to wait?
Yeah, I went the long way
There's
around.
nobody here for public comment, so.
Came around and she was just coming.
Yeah, Rich Mason is here for comment.
No.
Call this council work session to order Wednesday, September 15th. The time is 1 p.m. Open it up for visitor comments. Anything you want to do, Matt?
Yes,
Richard,
are you there?
Yeah, this is Rich Mason. I'd like to make a comment
Richard,
also.
can you hear us?
I'm sorry.
Unmute yourself, maybe?
This is Rich Mason, Mayor.
Just a minute here.
Can I go ahead and comment or?
Richard, can you hear us?
Oh, yeah, I was waiting for somebody to tell me to go ahead. About a week ago, I sent you guys an email asking that there be an update on the registration kiosk down on the city docks. I sent it to you and to Doug, and I copied John on it, and I never got a response back from anyone. I was just wondering is that possible to get an update on that project in the next month or so?
Speakers does not seem to be working.
Okay, Richard, can you hear us? Can he shake his head?
Yeah,
Yes?
I can hear
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yeah.
Can you stream it from your laptop?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you through Matt's computer, but you can hear me?
Correct. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Hang on 1 second, Richard. Can you try speaking again?
Okay, I hear everybody there. Supposedly I'm unmuted.
there you are. No, we just had to hook you up to our. Go ahead, Richard.
Okay, sorry. About a week ago, I sent you, Rick, and Doug an email on, it was a request to see if we could get an update on the registration kiosk down on the city docks. and I didn't hear from anyone, and I just wanted to make sure, is that how I asked for an update or what?
So, Richard, staff is currently working on that, and we are planning on putting on our next agenda for an update item.
Okay, well, that's all I was looking for.
Richard, Doug Martin, I did hit reply all, and I believe that should have got back to you. You did not get that?
No, I didn't get that. And I check my junk box on a daily basis too, just in case something gets put in there, but
That's where I usually end up.
yeah. All right, guys.
But staff is currently working on it and coming up with a couple options. So we'll have a presentation for our next work session, okay?
All right, thanks, guys.
Any other visitor comments? Nope. Not seeing any. All right, so we'll move on to our first topic, which would be presentation by Mckenzie Engineering on new public safety facility. Welcome much. Want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kick off. My name is Jeff Humphries. I'm a licensed architect and one of the principals at Mckenzie. And I've dedicated my career to the assessment, the design, and development of law enforcement facilities. And I lead our team of design professionals that specialize in public safety projects. Together, we've completed about 125 different public safety projects, and 30 of those have been law enforcement facilities. So our understanding is that we've been asked to come to talk to you today, tell you a little bit about Mckenzie, about our team, talk about the project, and some key elements that we think are important about the project. So I'll kick off here with Mckenzie. So Mckenzie is a integrated design firm. We're based in Portland, Oregon. And we were founded in 1960. And when I say we're integrated design firm, it's because we have all the disciplines that are required to actually implement the project for your public safety project. So we have architects, all three of us are architects, but we also have, as our colleagues, civil engineers, structural engineers, traffic engineers, landscape architects, and land use planners. And Brian is on the phone here, so we'll be able to have her hit that. So with that, I had today with me our key staff that are going to be on this project. I'm going to turn it over to them to introduce themselves and the team.
Hi, I'm Thomas Peck. I'm an architect and design director at Mckenzie. I've been with Mckenzie for over 14 years, and I've had the chance to work with Jeff on a handful of public safety projects. So I'm very excited to be a part of the team on this project as well. I have a lot of other experience as well, but I'm very, very interested in public safety facilities. And this is a very exciting project for me. So
Do you want to check in and see if Brian's able to hear?
He is. I'm gonna have to turn off your presentation because when the solstice pod is on, it overtakes the audio, and so the Zoom audio.
That's okay. You can kick over to Brian and then we can.
Hey, Brian, are you there?
I am. Good afternoon, counselors. Thank you for your time today. I'm Brian Veracchione. I'm a planner at Mckenzie, as Jeff mentioned, and I'm excited to help out City of St. Helens with this project.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay,
We may need to do a little back and forth between Brian and us, but.
I gotta figure it out now.
Nice. You got your system. And I'm Adam Olson, project manager on the project. I started the needs assessment at the very beginning of the process and excited to take it to the next phase. I've been an architect for almost 20 years, worked on a variety of different buildings, and been working in the public sector for about going on 6-7 years now. So excited to work on that. And then up on the screen here, all of the folks that have the orange underneath their pictures, those are all Mckenzie staff. So we've obviously got Jeff, myself, and then we also have Chris Hope on the project as a project architect. But I believe everyone in the middle there, they all touched the needs assessment when we were going through that process. So we've got Ralph, civil, Tom introduced himself, and of course Brian and Alexis will be interiors, Nicole landscape, and David on structural. And so they've all touched the project. They're all very familiar with it. Kind of basically getting the band back together for phase 2 here, and excited to do that. And then in the lower right corner, we have Steve Gunn, who's with Construction Focus, and he was the cost estimator that we used when putting together our cost estimate for the needs assessment process and getting us to sort of where we're at today from a cost standpoint. And then we've also a couple of new faces, at least for this project, but not to the team here. We've worked with these individuals on multiple other projects. PAE Consulting Engineers is what Dave Williams and Brandon Watt are from. And then we just are finishing up Lake Oswego City Hall and Police with Alan Burt, who was an acoustical engineer on that project and planning to be acoustics on St. Helens Police. So we just wanted to touch real briefly on some relevant experience that Mckenzie projects that we've done in the past, currently on the books, and just kind of run through those real quick for you, just to give you a little bit of a breadth of our experience. This one that's on the screen here, this is Lake Oswego City Hall that I just mentioned a minute ago. And just basically on the tail end of this project, we're finishing up pretty much this month. It was built in 2 different phases, and phase 2 is just about finished. But the way that this, I mean, so it's a large building, as you can see, almost 72,000 square feet, but just the police portion itself, it's just one story of this is about right around 20,000, and the proposed facility size that we have for you guys is 22. So very comparable in size, and that's why I wanted to just show it to you real quick. And this is a larger public project that our Seattle staff mainly is spearheading, and it's Linwood Community Justice Center. It's a existing building where they're going to be doing a lot of renovations, and there's going to be also some additions onto that building. So just wanted to show you what's basically in design right now for the firm from a police standpoint. And then these next couple of projects, this is the Westland Police project that we did. You can see it's really close to 19,000 square feet. So again, comparable in size. And this one we did for the city of Gresham. This is actually a precinct. This is their the Rockwood Community Precinct. And so this is a little bit smaller than what we're looking at for you guys. But one of the things that we wanted to highlight on there is the use of wood and masonry, which is something that you guys are interested in. Now, can we get Brian just audio and not necessarily video? So we can see the slides at the same time?
No. Do you want audio? Do you want Brian to speak?
Yeah, well, Brian, he was going to speak to Albany Police here. Just
Let me know when you want him to come on in, and I can switch between the two.
Okay. That's good.
All right. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, I guess I'm devoid of graphics, so I'll just try to describe. One other project that we worked on was Albany Police. That's a site right on Highway 99E, south of downtown in Albany. And their building was finished 3 years ago. It's larger than what St. Helens has, because it's just over slightly 40,000 square feet. But one of the commonalities between Albany and St. Helens is that site was in 2 different zoning districts, much as the parcel is that's been selected for St. Helens. So part of it's residential and part of it, in Albany's case, was commercial, and for St. Helens, it's industrial. So that makes for some interesting land use planning balancing act to make sure that we're meeting all the applicable rules on each side of that imaginary line on the zoning map. But we were successful in getting through that in Albany, and are confident that we can do the same in St. Helens based on our conversations with Jacob to date. Moving on, just in general terms, I'm sure you've probably gleaned that, but we've got a lot of experience overall with fire stations, city halls, public works facilities, and obviously police. And we think that will serve St. Helens well as we move through the project. And then we've also got dedicated teams who work on commercial and industrial projects. And in fact, several folks from Mckenzie are working on an industrial project in St. Helens for the industrial business park, which basically is right next to the police site. We've also done some other projects for the city, Campbell Park, Godfrey Park. We've done some sort of concept level master planning for both of those. And then we are just embarking now on a project with the port at McNulty Industrial Park to help see some forward progress on getting some industrial development there. Next, I'll say a little bit about community involvement.
Can we, hey, Brian? Can
Yes.
we maybe toggle from him, catch up I think there are 2 slides there, and then toggle back to him? Sorry, keeping us on our toes here.
Flexibility.
So this is the images for the Albany PD project that we did. And I think the next one this is the master plan for the park. So, okay, now back to Brian, sorry.
I'm just going to talk a little bit about community involvement here. So
Yeah, so you got to see a photo of some people in a room there. So community involvement can take many different forms. Often, traditionally, it's been in person, although lately we've had to experiment with some of the more virtual options. But in general terms, community involvement can either be information sharing, where the city and the design team are explaining to community members, here's where the site is, here's what the design is proposed. Can be information gathering, where we seek feedback on various design concepts. And then sometimes it's all about seeking input from the public on particular elements that can inform the design. So a couple of ways that we would illustrate that. Other projects, so for instance, in Lake Oswego, we did some focused outreach efforts there where we would have topical meetings. So for instance, there was one meeting that was about sustainability and energy use. We had another meeting about architectural design, so they can be very focused like that. And those did help inform the design and changed how the building looked and operated for the Lake Oswego City Hall. And then when Kaiser was under development, we had community meetings there as well. And one of the things that we heard from community members was that when there were large civic gatherings, such as the Rotary Club or some other group, if they wanted to have a meeting, they had to go to Salem, which, that's not real inspiring when you have to leave town to have a meeting about your town. So as part of the City Hall design there, a community room was incorporated. And so now these groups can have meetings in their own town. So these are all just examples of how outreach can be held. We're anticipating that during the St. Helens project, there'll be periodic public outreach, which may consist of presentations to council along the way, or there may be other events as well. And at this point, I will turn it back to the folks in the room. Thank you.
So go to the next slide.
We can adapt.
Yeah.
being nimble. Well, one of the things that we were really happy with to be part of is through the needs assessment effort, we were able to work really closely with city staff and police towards the goal of crafting a vision that met the essential and community needs for St. Helens. And another goal was to do that in a way that was unique and responsive to the values and the heritage of St. Helens. Through the design concept that we worked towards based on the program and working through that with staff and police, we came up with this vision, this concept. I'll highlight some design elements. So the main roof form over the courtroom / community room and the main entry for the building is elevated and we're anticipating that'll probably be CLT. So the warmth of wood will be there and protected and warm and inviting. There's also a high degree of transparency at the main entry, just to promote visibility and visual access into that public portion of the building. Another thing that we're pretty excited about is the plaza space that's sort of out in front near the main entry and adjacent to the community room as an extension or a spill out space for that. We've talked about some ways to make that meaningfully a part of the community, potentially people donating pavers that could be incorporated into the design. The other thing is just, this could allow for the police station to be the backdrop for community outreach events and other things. We've talked about the idea of coffee with a car show or something like that, where families and members of the community could come and have positive, meaningful interactions with law enforcement, so that it could be a positive member of the community and be seen that way and be visible that way. Another thing that we talked about was the materiality of the building and site elements relating to other public civic buildings like this one, historic City Hall. So the use of basalt in the site retaining walls and planters and potentially in areas along the base of the building, just to help tie it into, you know, a history and a heritage of civic buildings here in St. Helens. Let's go to the next slide. One of the things that was really important was to make the form and the materiality and the character of the building reflect the program, and making sure that the public elements of the building were postured outwards toward the community to be warm and inviting. So that consideration, along with needing to keep the building outside of the 100-year floodplain line, helped us position the building this way on the site. So we landed on this orientation. So on the left corner there, that's the community room, and that's adjacent to the main entry of the building and that public plaza element. And that's oriented parallel to Castor, facing outward towards the new roundabout, and the community building will be facing Portland, Old Portland Road there. The other thing that we landed on here with this positioning of the building on the site is it helps separate public parking, which is highly visible and accessible out front off of Castor, from the secure police parking on the backside to the right there. And then another thing to note about the plaza space is that it is an amenity for the building, for the function, as well as for the community, but it has an operational function as well. It serves as a secondary access and exit point for police vehicles in the event that that's needed, but the design would not read as a road or right of way, would read as a public space, just to have a softer, more civic presence along Old Portland Road and the roundabout. So.
Does it bother you as an architect to have the landscaping up in the roundabout? It bothers me right now.
Well, because of that fish.
Hopefully it won't block visibility. Which nothing is fully set in stone.
Yeah, I get it.
We're looking forward to working through those details.
Sure.
If there aren't any questions, or if there's anything that wasn't clear, I'll hand it over to Adam here.
Sure. Yeah, can you elaborate on the 100-year floodplain? Just in recent news coverage, 500-year floodplains aren't even in the formula for many of the cities, because the amount of rain and the amount of storms and those kinds of things are epic at this point. What are we in for 40 years from now or 50 years from now, with this being in this area, with you being over in accordance to the 100-year floodplain? Do you feel comfortable having this building here for some time without a major flood?
Well, to clarify, that's a good question. We actually had designed this, and that was included in our cost estimate. This building is actually 3 feet, the finished floor, of the main floor of the building is 3 feet above that 100-year floodplain. The zoning code has specific requirements that the essential facilities need to meet those requirements. So this building is, as flat as it may look on the site, we are intending to build that above that floodplain.
Thank you for answering that, especially for our citizens who, when they ask me, I go, well, we'll find out. And we just found out. Thank you.
Yeah, there are 2 other things I could add to that. So that meets the FEMA requirement as well as the city ordinance. And then in addition to that, we will be extending a public right of way because we have to have that access point to and from the essential facility. So that's something that's also been forecast on there.
So, sorry, so what you just mentioned, then that means that if that intersection is flooded, we do have an alternative egress, ingress.
And that's what that gray road is showing, where the mouse, where Matt's pointing to right there. That's the intent. That's the higher ground. All that. So
Doesn't do any good to have the building high and dry if you can't get to it. So
Well, right, exactly. That I think would be yeah.
You exit directly Old Portland Road, basically from the center of this plot, where you have to travel some time on those service roads. We've got a group of trees indicated by the letters that say Old Portland Road. Can you exit from this parking lot straight to the Old Portland Road?
That's on it.
you cannot. The public access is off of Castor, and it actually is just off the tip of that that screen there, it's like, yeah, right there where Matt's actually pointing to. So that's the public access. And that will probably be the primary access for emergency responders as well. But there is a secondary access, Matt, if you want to point, yep, right there. So that would be, and that's going to be restricted to emergency vehicles only in that spot.
So it's just out of sight.
Yes,
This one, it's center of the picture, just out of sight.
that's right. Yep. Mhm.
Well, and I just wanted to say I really appreciate your attention to the woodwork and stonework and things like that, that design that really speaks to the culture here in St. Helens, so I appreciate that.
Can I piggyback on that, is that there's gonna be some really nice trees being taken down for this, and like some nice oak and stuff. I'm hoping that whatever I think the design, that somehow that stuff could be repurposed, reused in the construction. I don't know if that's be furniture or whatever, just like I hope that might be kind of a thing to do, because we got some nice trees coming down and they might provide some nice wood. And so that, and then the second thing is I really like, in terms of the public engagement, would hope that we can have some of the options that Brian referred to not just have information sharing and information gathering, but some opportunities for specific input into aspects of the design.
Matt, do you want to go into the schedule? If no one else has any other comments on the site plan or? So this is the high-level schedule that we had included in our response to the RFP. And here we are, last quarter of 2021, and hoping to get started initially here. We've got 3 distinct design phases. We've got schematic design, design development, and construction documents. And we typically like to look at, in terms of level of completeness with the drawings, is that your SD is about 30% complete, your DD is about 60%, and your CDs are about 90% complete. So during the SD phase, the intent is that we'll be taking the information that we gathered in the needs assessment and just reconfirming with the team, hey, are we still good with this program? Is this size of this building still work? Do these adjacencies within the building work? And then once we get confirmation on those items, we'll start to develop the documents and bring those up to about that 30% threshold that I mentioned earlier. And then at the end of the SD process, and at the end of every portion of those 3 distinct design phases, we'll be doing a cost estimate check-in with Steve Gunn. I mentioned him earlier, and the team. And so he'll basically be doing a ground-up estimate at the end of each of those design points, those milestones, if you want to call it, just to make sure we're still targeting and tracking the city's current budget on the project. And if we're going hot, then hey, we need to kind of pull back on some things, maybe reevaluate, materials, or just sort of investigate that, talk through that with the PD as well as city staff. And then the intent is at the end of SD, after we get a solid check-in and we feel like we're on a solid path for once SD is complete, the intent is to, at that point, to submit for land use permits and such, the conditional use, the sensitive lands permits, just the overall land use process. That's what's shown in purple there, and that spans over a couple of different design phases. But the ultimate intent is that we get land use approval right about the time that we submit for building permit, and that's what's shown in that blue kind of mid-2022 portion of the project. So after we have land use permits in hand, after we have building permits in hand, the intent at that point is that we, go out to bid, find a GC for the project, vet that carefully and make sure that we're choosing the right company for the job, not just the low bidder, but the lowest responsible bidder, making sure that gets vetted appropriately, and then starting construction, have a bid award there of September 1st. So around that time is when we're looking to start construction. And then we've got construction going to the end of 2023. So that's the overall schedule. And then one thing too I didn't mention is that initially here, and I have it on my calendar to touch base with you tomorrow, is getting started with the survey and the geotechnical report, because those are pretty important pieces of the puzzle for the designers on the project, and getting those. And I have them basically delivered here, mid SD, so that we can incorporate any feedback from the boards in that initial SD cost estimate, so. Any questions on the schedule?
It never come in under budget? Just wondering.
Yeah.
It's a good question because you guys are gonna have to work with these contractors. Yes.
So project I'm working on right now for Canby Utility, actually another public project. The initial project came in, it was really a active bidding environment. And that one came in at $700,000 under budget. And then phase 2, it actually bid right when the economy shut down. And it came in $3.5 million under budget for phase 2. So it was an incredible timing thing for that, and COVID had an unbelievable effect on that whole bidding environment. But on that particular project that I'm currently working on, it did. So I guess with that, if there's no other questions on the schedule, I guess just on the overall presentation, we want to address any questions, concerns that you have. We can pull up any other slides, you think, Ms. Kelson?
We have Old Portland Road with the traffic circle there. We have an industrial park just downhill to basically to the right. If the industrial park really takes off, we're gonna have a lot of traffic coming up through there, where we've got to get vehicles, public and otherwise, out of the police area, out of that circle. I can imagine, say, 2 semi trucks coming from the industrial area, from who's ever there, basically plugging that up. Just on a normal day, not accidents or anything. It seems like the inlet and outlet of this are basically congested when we get the other things in the area going. For this particular facility, not a problem, but when we get the industrial area going, I expect a lot of heavy traffic both coming in and out around that traffic circle.
The ingress and egress, pardon me for interrupting, but the ingress and egress has not been designed for the industrial park. So there's multi kinds of design issues that can be resolved that way. And that's kind of my answer.
We've got a stream basically to the west, which is going to limit our exit in that direction.
Well, perhaps I'm wrong, but the traffic circle is separate from the police station.
It is, yes, completely separate from our scope of work. And we were, actually, Matt had shared the report that included that work. I think there was like a master plan of sorts that was done.
It's part of the transportation master plan.
But since then, a lot of things have changed. The connector plan didn't have some of these things thrown in. So there's been a number of other features to the whole area that, as I say, getting stuff in and out of there, if it becomes too much of a bottleneck, your industrial people won't put their facilities into the industrial area. Because one of the things they want to do is get their stuff in and out. And big trucks and circles are the problem.
We also have ingress and egress on Railroad Avenue that comes into our port area. And the port area is interested in transportation in that on that area as well. That's down towards the waterfront, towards the railroad track. So I think Mr. Topaz has a good point, but I think it's already covered and already thought of.
The first phase of the industrial business park is, as they mentioned before, is part of Mckenzie's team who will be doing that work, which includes the development of potentially down Railroad Avenue in phase 1.
But I think that ought to be brought, because that's just by itself, you see that coming up as a problem. The other possible solution is probably God and the bureaucrats would fight about, is dropping the level of that stream. That stream is not naturally located there. That's a kind of a production of the industry in the early 1900s. So that stream went another direction way back when. What's the possibility in state law of digging that so its bottom is, say, 5 foot lower than it is now, which would help the 100-year floodplain.
Well, and I just wanted to comment, a side comment that we met as a team, Matt and I and John Walsh and the police chief and a detective, and you guys were the overall winner. I mean, you just, the communications that you've had with the police and the staff there has been overwhelming, and they're really happy to see us move forward with you guys, so.
We're very excited too.
I would go back to address your question. I think it's really gonna be an uphill, like something that really couldn't happen because they don't let you dig in sensitive creeks because of crawdads and.
Yeah, I know, and as I say, on a natural stream, I would agree with them, but this is kind of a.
Well, I agree with diverted, but
And moving any piece of water in this state, God would have a hard time. As I say, that is the situation of this particular piece of water. It is not, that is not its natural location. If you look at it, actually, it's higher than the grounds around it. Come in from Route 30 on Old Portland Road to realize the stream is higher, which God didn't put water higher. In fact, it went another direction, as I said. But that's one of the questions that I ask, which is peculiar to Oregon.
I'm still not sure. I think that's a separate issue than the one we have on the agenda now, is the building of the facility. And I think that's what Councilor Chilton was referring to earlier, is that, and Councilor Morton, that these transportation ones, yes, even though this firm is going to be involved in that, this particular team is looking at the public safety facility. And I don't know that now is the appropriate time to deal with that question.
When it comes to physical effects, it's always time. Because we saw what happened in Texas and Louisiana. They had rain that nobody expected. And they're pretty well accustomed to a lot of rain. So what's my design point is, what's the worst thing that can happen? Is there a way to mitigate it ahead of time? Now, I agree that it may be very difficult legally with present state laws, but it's something to look at. And the fact that we have put plans in place 10, 25 years ago, and all of a sudden they're cast in concrete and not having to change them. The other thing is how many services come down that road to go to the industrial plant. If you have to dig up something because you have a major problem there, do you lock the police station up? Now I'm talking about a major problem with, say, water lines. Is there a good way around that whole intersection? This becomes critical, getting our policing out to the whole city and getting our industrial input and output through that area.
We just need a police boat.
Well, yeah, we've got that stream that's gonna hamper us in the one direction.
So I think you make a valid point, and I think we'll cross that on the civil side of things when we get there, especially in egress coming out. There should be some, and there is multiple ways for officers to get out in this design. So I think I've seen 3. I've seen a back way, a sideways, and then the original way. So there you go. So we got that way coming out, like you said, and then on there's the second, which is emergency, and that's the third, can be used for the 100-year floodplain.
Well, if you look at that, Rick, and I can put 2 semi trucks between the traffic circle and where you come out, and nothing can come out backwards. Then you have one, the 2 egresses coming from the facility. Basically, have only one point to get onto a public road.
We'll address that when we get there.
Okay, but as I say, heads up, because that could become a biggie.
I love the design. I had some comments from some citizens about all the windows. They didn't like all the windows in the design. You know, police station, everything that's going on nowadays, they're like, why so many windows? So, but it gives it that openness and that feel of welcoming. And
They're safe windows.
yes.
Very safe.
They're bulletproof.
The ones for police operations will be, that'll be a cost issue that we'll have to work through here in the public zones. But as far as the secure day-to-day operations of police, ballistic, lasing, solutions, durable building materials that have, like, that will be the consideration to protect that portion of the facility. But most of this glass is the public entry community room space.
I think all the glass is a great metaphor for transparency in our government.
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
the openness and it feels good.
That's absolutely the reason why we were looking at it this way, just to communicate something positive about law enforcement to the community, so.
Absolutely. Yep. So we got good support around here for our police department and, yeah, just keep that in mind that we are always on a limited budget and trying to make sense with our dollars. Gotta ask just why we got here.
So council, next steps would be to add this as a work session item for this evening, or you would give direction to John and myself to work through the scope to bring back to you from Mckenzie to move forward.
It's that way we can actually have an idea to tell the citizens what.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Enjoy this beautiful fall day. The Public Works Department semi-annual report, the home there. Is our director.
Good afternoon. All right, well, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Thank you for having me today. It's our Public Works semi-annual report. I brought a little different flavor to this particular presentation where I brought some of our team members who are on the front lines in the Public Works Department to also share some of their experiences with our transition and the progress that we've made since the beginning of the year. With that said, I'd like to start with our mission statement. As you all get to know me a little bit, I take a lot of pride in our work here and ownership in the Public Works Department by providing a world-class level service to our citizen and community. And this has been a consistent message from day one. We take pride in our work and we do a lot of work for the city that is noticeable. And a lot of this work, especially the one behind the scenes that unfortunately some of the community members don't get to see. So we really want to highlight some of that through this presentation today. To give you an idea, and you've seen the slides in the past, there has been some changes since last time we met on the structure of the department. But I also wanted to highlight a little bit the complexity of the Public Works Department and the amount of kind of projects and technical expertise needed in order to keep the city running and functioning, starting with our engineering division, all the way to the operations and the wastewater treatment, water filtration. The amount of resources and efforts that goes into these departments is immense and really deserves some, I think, highlights here to the community and to our council and the team. So as we move forward, this is the previous again structure, and we'll talk a little bit about the changes that has happened since January and the effect and the progress as we move forward, and our team will join us here in the discussion very soon. I want to focus my particular role here a little bit on the operations side. If you heard in the news in the past few months about a Congress package talks about infrastructure in the United States. We here at the city of St. Helens are part of that discussion. We are not special in a sense that we also need a lot of help in our infrastructure. And to give you just a general idea about the United States, overall municipalities and where they stand in the budgeting and on the funding for a lot of these departments of public works. Focusing just on the last at least two here where there was wastewater treatment and water filtration, also the public works, parks and recreation. There is a gap in funding of $114 billion United States wise. I'll talk a little bit more about our specific city and what we maintain. But to give you just the numbers, staggering across the entire nation. That money to get these projects done has always been critical issues anywhere you go. Any state, any city, big or small, we all have challenges, and usually the complexity of these projects consistently are around same numbers. Getting the funding for these projects is really difficult. To give you just a little idea about our current city in particular, if you look at how much we maintain, the infrastructure we have, whether it's the 60 miles of sanitary sewer lines or 98 miles of roadway maintenance, 7,000 plus fire hydrants and water meters, all these functions that we have in the city that we maintain in public works requires resources, requires a lot of efforts, technical expertise, and a 24/7 operation. Just thinking at the very small scale out of this big pie that we just shared, the amount of work that goes into this is really critical. Leadership, council support, it's all very important piece that comes out of maintaining and keep the city operational. And this is, all this work is being done by our department, public works, and our team members on the ground. My philosophy and model of leadership has been focusing since the day I got here on the effect, the efforts, the quantity, and the quality that we can offer in order to move these infrastructure projects. How do you choose what project to work on? How do you provide a level of service that is above and beyond? And how to do that in a professional and also a logistical manner where you can make informed decisions. Looking at this next slide, I'm gonna give you an example shortly about projects of how do we pick those and how do we work, right? I'm a big fan of what you call the red, green, and yellow. When we're looking at a problem, how do we resolve it? And we need to have data in order to make informed decisions. Which project do we do first? What is the priority of this project? How does it impact other departments? How does it impact the community, right? Do we delay? Do we delegate? Or do we not do? When I talk about delegating, is this a project where we need to seek professional services, whether it's a design, whether we can do in-house, and the priority and whatnot. So, and it's very important to be able to measure success and progress. I always tell my team members, success is not luck, it's a habit. It's something you have to be able to replicate. Without a process, accountability, ownership, that cannot be done. We can wing a project today and do a good job. Tomorrow, we cannot replicate that without following the proper industry standard and best practices. So again, one of the projects that I can tell you that has been an issue, at least when it landed in my office not too long ago, the North 11th and Deer Island Road. This is a good example of where these models that I just mentioned play a huge role into decision-making and resources, right? We had, most recently, you've probably seen on Facebook, some communication about water shut off somewhere around the city. You might be impacted. This is what is this all about. If you look at the details, and I'm not gonna go too much to bore you with what's going on, but we laid out a plan just to kind of give you the logistics of this project. 16 valves to be shut down, more than 120 houses of the water going to be shut off in order to move this forward, and so forth. Collaborating with our engineering department and putting these models and the risk factors and implementing best practice project management. Bringing this map you see here on the side, those highlighted valves are all connected to that one particular issue where we had on North 11. Going back to the aging infrastructure. This particular project should not have been this complicated simply because we shouldn't have one valve that controls 120 homes. They should be as segregated systems and able to control one where we do a shut off. It doesn't affect everybody in that line. And of course, you have to account for emergencies. We have fire hydrants that we had to turn off. God forbid an emergency happened. So this is a massive scale, obviously. However, this project has been pending and this valve has been leaking since May of last year. So, and not to put that in cost or numbers, we're talking about more than thousands of gallons been leaking in one of our valves since May of last year. And having a project with this magnitude settling there, not being done is a challenge, it's important for many reasons. However, when we decided to move forward and get this project done, it took less than 2 hours to implement and execute successfully without a peak. Going back all these models that I talked about, plays a huge role into assigning, delegating the quality, the quantity, and the resources available. This is again where leadership, direction, technical expertise plays a huge role in how do you decide, when to execute, evaluate the rest, and whatnot. And again, part of that bigger discussion is the infrastructure issues that we have is part of all that. Our city aging infrastructure is need of a lot of attention. And what we're doing to do that and mitigate that is we're coming next year on the capital improvement plans update. My first order of business when I joined the city, looking at the CIP for the entire city, right? We have a lot of areas that we need to have updated on a regular cycle basis. The best practices is to have these master plans updated every 5 years, and that cycle should be very consistent moving forward. Some examples I can share with you here, looking at the stormwater and sanitary sewer master plan. Last one was completed about 15 years ago. This is a challenging issue when it comes to all these discussions we're having about infrastructure. These should have been updated, and we're taking a lot of actions towards updating this. The good news, the new master plan for the sanitary sewer and stormwater will be completed this year. In fact, we're going to have a presentation to the council work session by late October, and we're hopefully adopting this by early November. Another master plan we started not too long ago is the water master plan. Again, last completed in 2013. We are in the midst of this one, and we have put the RFP out, and we're in the process of getting all that in place. And this is slated to be completed by 2022. The water master plan and the storm sanitary sewer master plan, they go kind of hand in hand. Those are 3 different master plans that are going simultaneously now to upgrade and look at our whole water distribution system. We also initiated the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. This one has been done lastly in 2015. We had a great kind of run on that as a beginner, but moving forward with all the growth we having and all the great opportunities we have working with our leadership and our new Parks and Rec manager, we're taking this to the next level because we need an updated one where we can address a lot of the great things that some have you seen and some you will see down the road. Last but not least, the transportation system master plan. We talked a little bit about that. Our transportation master plan, I spend a lot of time reading that and looking into it. Not only it's been done more than 10 years ago, but it has not been done properly. It has a lot of technical challenges, issues, missing information, and that's another one that is very important for our infrastructure as we move forward. And this is slated to be started by the end of this year. So with that said, that should complete all our master planning process. And by the middle of next year, we should have a fully executed master plan for the entire city, where we can derive a lot of the potential growth. A lot of these projects we're working on is going to address many great things as we move forward. An important piece in leadership in the public works is being able to adapt to change and challenging opportunities that arise. A good example I can share with you, as we are working on the water master plan, wastewater and sanitary sewer master plan, we are hit with a curveball from DEQ, where we have to come up with what you call a TMDL, mercury monitoring for the Willamette Basin that we have here in the city. Being the city of St. Helens, we are unique. It's a blessing. We have to do this on top of what we already have started. And this came kind of in the middle of our current progress in the master plan. However, being able to adapt and implement changes on the one is a big part of change management. And that's something that we have all to be always ready for, to adapt and adjust to all these challenges, opportunities that comes, and also comply with federal and state laws as well. So the good news is in this one, we work with our team here. Sharon has been a great part of this particular project, and we are about 50% complete with the progress. We implemented the scope with our existing master plan. We are on the road to get this completed as well early mid next year. So some of the strategic plan project that we have accomplished that were established at some point in the past, and we're in the midst of executing those. Sidewalks on North Vernonia Road, some of the 5th Street Trail. We have a lot of intersections in the town that has already been curb ramps that have been updated, and we'll talk more about those here in a second. One of the biggest winners, the new playground equipment at McCormick Park. This has been an amazing achievement. I think the entire city is very proud of. Amazing for many generations to come. We're setting the example and role model for other cities to adapt and look at what's happening in St. Helens. Recreation programs, financial stability is another great area that a lot of the support comes in from our administration. Mr. Walsh, Matt, worked with us on a lot of these great success of many. Another major one that's coming up very soon, hopefully we're looking into implementing by the end of the year, Campbell Park. We're working on bringing some really great, amazing fields that's gonna really give that opportunity for our youth to enjoy amazing sports outdoors and great products again within the city. Last but not least, water main replacement project. We're working on this and we're starting out this fall for replacing a lot of our aging infrastructures. Again, we have very old pipes in the system that is cracking, causing leaks in our systems and water distribution. And we're looking at now calculating the percentage of how much we leak every year. Anything above 20% is a problem. We're looking at upgrading our meters for the entire city and have a more robust system, what you call with ultrasonic capability, meaning increased revenue for the city. It will improve that leakage within the distribution system as we move forward. Also bring a technology piece to it, which called the AMI, being able to save a lot of the time and the resources from our team in Public Works to drive around and pick up the readings of those meters manually. We can be reading those. We're simply looking into the system and tablets. And again, a lot of those investment into infrastructure is really critical to bring us up to par with what other cities are doing. Last but not least, on the side of operation, I follow what you call the continuous improvement cycle. How do I drive decisions and how do I make my decisions that affects the Public Works Department and improve and bring in all those? This particular model have been very successful in a lot of organizations, and it's best practices, again, according to all the leadership existing practices outside from the private and public sectors. The discovery is very important, analyzing departments, analyzing resources, financial responsibility, and collecting data from that and looking at the structure of any department. Again, come from the leadership standpoint, you have to be able to make informed decisions, and those decisions have to be backed up with data. They say numbers don't lie. It's very true. So once we determine, or I've been determining a lot of these changes in the Public Works Department and looking at a lot of these challenges and areas of opportunities, I like to go on the development mode. Right? Developing is very important. As a leader, I play the role of a coach as well. My role is to look at internal talent and look at team capabilities and be able to leverage and bring those team expertise and give them that support and development to rise to a level of good management, right? We have great success stories here, and I brought some of my team members here that will join us in a second to tell you a little bit about these transformation that we've done and recognizing the strength of these individuals. It's very important to look at and develop. And last but not least is implementation. It's very important to take actions on those suggestions. That requires a lot of also support from our leadership, and you guys have been amazingly supportive and which helping me to make this decision and continue the success that we already established. So looking at our engineering department and some of the projects, I would like to invite Sharon to join us here to tell you a little bit about some of the projects we're working on. Just to highlight a little bit about Sharon, if you haven't met her, she's our project manager in the engineering department. She has been awarded the Employee of the Year last year. And most recently, I've nominated her to be in the Northwest Women Leadership. I would like to tell you congratulations for being accepted to that. And we want to support the female leadership role here at the city and work hard towards diversity, equity, and inclusions. And again, the support of our administrator, John Walsh, and the city council is very important for making these decisions. With that said, Sharon, I'll let you run with what we have on the urban.
Everyone.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi. So as Mohammed mentioned, I want to highlight the curb ramp improvement project that we just retrofitted or added new curbs to 7 intersections in town. And the aim of the project was to improve safety and accessibility for seniors, for people with mobility issues, parents with strollers, so they can more easily maneuver off and on to the sidewalks. We chose the areas that either had no curb ramps or they had curb ramps that were not safe anymore, or some of them that were complaint driven, meaning that either someone tripped in that area and then complained about it, and then that's how it gets on our list. So this first ramp here is right down here next to the old courthouse. And you can see that the previous ramp, it didn't have any warning strips. So the warning strips are basically the little bumps you see on the curb ramps. That's for people who are visually impaired. So when they get to that curb, they can feel it, know that they're coming onto a roadway. And not only that, the previous ramp didn't even face the crosswalk. And so now you see the new one.
That looks very nice, by the way.
Thank you. So the second one here is on the southeast corner of 4th Street and St. Helens, and this one was complaint driven. And so there was no ramp at all right here. So that's the new ramp. And the configuration is showing that they can, it's designed so that they can cross over St. Helens Street or cross over on 4th Street. So that's why it has that curve on that one.
And just one thing to add on this particular project, this was designed in-house. We leverage our internal talent in the team without going outside for expertise. And we were able to do, as I mentioned, in our department, great design for the city and saved an immense amount of resources to go out and bid this.
Very nice.
So the construction cost on that was $79,000, and I estimated that we saved between $15,000 and $25,000 by doing the design in-house, which we try to do most of that in-house, as long as it doesn't take a big design for a team or something very specialized. And so this one was the right across by the Rose Gardens, not much of a ramp, somewhat dangerous. I do believe that someone did trip at this location, and you can see that the crosswalk is in full disrepair, and then you can see the new ramp right there now.
If you see the crosswalk over there, there is like some type of pothole over there coming into the ramp. That has been enhanced for that continuous mobility going into the court. So
That's the curb ramps. The other project that we wanted to highlight was the North Phoenia sidewalks.
That looks nice.
So we basically installed sidewalks on both sides of North Phoenia between Oakwood and MacArthur, and which was about 3,200 linear feet. We planted 26 new trees, installed speed check radar signs to slow down cars going around the bend at France. We also added an enhanced crosswalk going into Campbell Park with a pedestrian activated warning beacon, which is nice. I've seen people actually using it. Let's see, we also made drainage improvements. So basically all of the open ditch that used to be between North Phoenia between Oakwood and France is all hard pipe now.
Did you design that also?
No, this one was designed by David Evans. It was a lot of surveying, so this wasn't one that we would have been able to do in-house.
it's just a large project in comparison to others. And we still continue to find ways, even during hiring someone from the outside. We have a big role into vetting the design and being able to still looking at cost saving as we look at those design that comes in.
And speaking of cost savings, there was some issues with the survey with this one, and it would have overrun costs, but we worked with the contractor, and Tim Underwood was really good with working with the contractor on site, and we were able to keep our costs down under our contingency on that one. And this project was funded with SDC funds and by the Oregon Surface Transportation Block Grant Fund Exchange Program.
A long one.
Very country. And just a quick mention of other projects. We did our annual street striping this year. The Columbia Boulevard Sidewalk project is in design and is about 75% complete. David Evans and Associates is also doing that one. And we have a major water line replacement project, which Mohammed mentioned, coming up. And that should be advertised in the DJC next week for the replacement of about 1,600 feet of water line of 1 inch and 2 inch, just leaking and just causing a lot of problems. And this one we also did design in-house, and that one probably would save probably about over $50,000 on design on that one, because that's a pretty big one. So.
Great. Thank you so much, Sharon. Appreciate your time.
I just wanted to say, I live on Oakwood, so my
Oh, yeah.
daughter takes that sidewalk down to the softball fields at Campbell every day.
Yeah, it's nice.
Great, great.
I feel very safe with her doing that.
Very happy to hear. And we'll have a chance, Mr. Mayor and council members, to have a lot of questions. And I'm ready for your questions in particular. If you have any hydro ranger technical, we're ready for you. All right, next I have here, Mr. Aaron Conders. If you haven't met him or you probably heard his name, he oversees the wastewater treatment plant. He's one of the critical infrastructure team members who kind of work behind the scenes. But the function that our wastewater treatment plant and the water filtration does is immense, and I cannot put a price on that level of responsibility that comes from this department. But I also really wanted to bring him on board here to put a face to that name and have familiarity with some of the team members who doesn't know him, and also shed some lights on some of the great stuff we've done and the transition that we talked about earlier of transitioning from 2 separate departments and working under one hybrid model of water division department with 1 supervisor overseeing both. And with that said, Aaron, I'll let you chat a little bit with our leadership team about kind of where we are and where we.
First of all, I have to admire you guys. You guys have been wearing these and it's killing me back there. So this is just basically a brief history buff of the water filtration facility and the wastewater plant. The water plant was opened in 2006. It has the capacity for 6 million gallons a day. The city, when they built it, really did a good job. They made it big enough, and we can expand it 2 more racks and to 10 million gallons a day, which is, you don't see that very often. So we are set for a long time facility wise.
Future wise and growth wise, if we do expand, we have the capabilities of doing that in-house without the extension.
We have down there before, there's 2 full-time employees. There was 1 supervisor, 1 operator, and they would take turns being on call. And being on call or on standby, for those who don't know, is the state requires somebody to be able to respond within a certain amount of time to critical infrastructure at all times. So we have to have somebody for the water, wastewater, the wastewater collection, and the water distribution. So somebody has to be able to respond, and this plant requires 1 at all times. At the wastewater treatment plant, it was opened in 1971. As most people know, it was a venture with Boise. It has 2 lagoons. It has primary lagoon, which serves Columbia City, St. Helens, and the smaller industries. And then from there, it goes into our large lagoon. And you came down and you got a tour.
Yes.
Anytime.
But it treats, the larger lagoon treats everything from that gets to us from the mill and from the citizens. We have a staff of 4. We have 1 supervisor, 2 operators, and then a pre-treatment coordinator, and he's also an operator. And the industrial pre-treatment coordinator, he basically is the person, the go-between between the city and the industries, and he makes sure that they're discharging what they're supposed to be discharging within compliance, and he's responsible to the state and to the city. So we have our plan that he has to follow. The treatment plant staff maintains the treatment plant, 9 sanitary lift stations. They and the pre-treatment program. And again, 1 employee was required to be on standby all the time, 20% for the plant. And so moving forward, now we're in the process of getting 5 full-time employees. We'll have 1 supervisor, 3 cross-trained operators, and the pre-treatment coordinator, and he'll also be an operator again. And we'll maintain everything that we've already discussed.
So that's with existing resources with this model that we implemented in the wastewater treatment and water filtration. We leveraged existing talent within the team without going outside and seeking more resources in order to manage the infrastructure we have. And it has been working very well. And we'll talk a little bit about the efficiencies here that yielded from this particular move and structural change in the public.
So the benefits, as Mohammed said, it's pretty obvious. We were able to eliminate 1 position, 1 supervisory position, and maintain everything that we've been doing. Some of the things you may not realize is we have fewer duplicated resources. During that chlorine shortage, we were able to take chlorine from our wastewater plant to the water plant to carry them through the weekend when we couldn't get a delivery from the supplier. So we have that. We have testing equipment. We have 2 sets of equipment. There's no need for that. So when one fails, we have it at the other facility. Mechanical equipment, same thing. We have pumps that we use at both facilities. Why not have the same one? So
So we're talking here about resource cost saving in FTE positions versus having 5 or 6, where we had actually, what we had was plenty. We just had to restructure the department. And with that, we were able to eliminate any redundancy, find a lot of cost saving, at least over $150,000 within an FTE position to fill, 2 supervisors versus 1, and so forth. And when it comes to the maintenance and resources to operate those 2 departments, what they're by large, one of the biggest we have here. Think about the cost saving going into the maintenance and machinery and equipment for 2 separate plans where we can leverage one and we have the backup when we do that with 1 resource.
So the efficiencies, we had 2 crews doing the same job. And not exactly the same job, but we still have crews working on machinery. We have crews working in the lab doing testing. If we can do it, 1 crew with both, it just makes sense. The standby, we now have 1 person on call for both plants at the same time. So we've eliminated half the pay that's associated with that. And then we've already mentioned the equipment. We are in the process of getting a new chemical heat. We'll work with both plants with minor adjustments. So we'll have 1 set of spare parts as opposed to spare parts here, spare parts there.
Talking about earlier, if you guys heard in our budget planning meetings, we work with administration also on a lot of the cost saving in the overtime. Now, is that something we need? Absolutely, when we need, we will do. However, the resource allocation is really critical in maintaining that budget health and being able to put these resources where it's supposed to be and when needed.
So an example of a recent ongoing project at the water filtration facility, we're redoing the SCADA. SCADA is supervisory control and data acquisition. So basically, it's the heart and soul of the water plant. It tells the plant when to run, when to shut down, and without it, it would be very difficult to run the plant. We can do it. We've looked at it. We haven't done it in theory, we've only done it in theory, but this spray doesn't go that way. This was a project that had started prior to me coming on board, and since they've got there, it's in place now, but we have both the old one and the new one running at the same time. Our old SCADA system there was installed in 2006 when the plant was first built. It's running on the same equipment, same software. It's barely hanging on. So
it's a very, very big security vulnerability. If you guys heard about most recently in Florida about the act that happens into the chlorine, and someone can make major disaster damages if anybody have access to these systems. And I can tell you, technology goes hand in hand with public works. It's very critical infrastructure need that has to be upgraded. Our equipment where, how long, 2006 years old, you have a Windows that is not protected, that's not patched, and it's very vulnerable. All it takes is someone randomly getting access to the system, and we are in the newspaper with major problems. Therefore, it's very important to invest into the infrastructure of our city. As I always say to all my team members, we cannot provide the services if our health is not good. We have to be fully up to date with our equipment resources in order to be able to provide services in a timely manner and a safely manner.
How often are you supposed to upgrade the system?
The systems really with a SCADA is a very unique system, right? The typical IT life cycle for any product is 5 years, meaning if you buy a computer system, right, the hardware piece of it is a 5-year cycle. It has to be replaced, and it has to be replaced on a schedule. We don't have an asset system managed engine nowadays, and this is something we're going to work towards as we move forward.
That's what my thought was going too, yeah.
We have to have assets tracking. We don't have this today, but this is part of our leadership discussions that we meet with our city administrator with continuous improvement. My role doesn't stop for the public works. It's with every department, we have to be consistent. One good area I can share with you is if you've seen communication from me recently about the maintenance in public works, where We didn't have any tracking system or work order system where if anybody wants any services, they pick up the phone and call someone Public Works. It doesn't work. We cannot replicate, we cannot bring data. We don't know how long it took, and a job that could take an hour is taken 4 days. That's not acceptable, right? Going back to this particular issue, it's the same exact principle has to apply for every single segment.
So at the wastewater plant, this one's more of it was an ongoing project. In April of 2019, we got contacted by BPA and CRPUD, and they asked us if we'd be interested in doing a energy cohort with other food plants in the area. We said yes, SCAPU said yes, and then a handful of plants in Southwest Washington also were there. Basically what they did is they came out, they taught us how to read our energy bill, to look at it and find ways to save. And then also they came out, looked at our plant and said, well, have you thought about this? So what we did, the plant, we changed to LED lights. We changed to occupancy sensors. We put timers on fans. We bought little timers that you plug into the wall and you plug our equipment into it. It just, just the same thing you have in your house, but just those little things add up. And it was amazing over the year, how much we could. We spent total of less than $8,000 for all the changes that we did. And in the first year, we saved 280,000 kilowatt hours, which doesn't mean a whole lot until you see that it was over $13,000 an hour.
And the best part out of that, we got a check for $7,000 from RPUD. Think about that. It's a great saving and collaboration with our partners, and taking those steps and initiatives from leadership point to implement those changes. It might cost me upfront, but the return on investment is sooner than what I spend it on. So you have to think of that fashion. How do you save? Sometimes there is some little work upfront, but at the end, the overall goal, long-term success versus short.
And the project was, like I had mentioned, was from BPA. And their theory is if we can get industries to stop using as much energy, we don't have to build more infrastructure. So it's cheaper for them for us to not use it. So that's where some of the money came from. The graph up here shows you at the left-hand side of the graph is when we implemented all the changes. And the green line at the top is expected energy use. That was a baseline that they came up with that we had over the last couple of years. The blue line is the actual energy use. And the magenta line at the bottom is the cumulative savings over the year. So we should have been up towards the green, but we were well below it. And I believe, on a side note, I believe that of all the plants that were there, we saved most by percentage. We don't have the use that a lot of those plants have, but for percentage wise, we did very well. So.
And we continue that path, even with our filtration. And I just want to go back to what I said. You said magenta? No, that's pink. Okay. All right.
We both have daughters, so there's plenty of pink everywhere.
It's a big deal. Pink has been my work for the last few months.
So this is the second year, and it's only from last July through February. And the lines changed, but the bottom line isn't as low as it had been, simply because there's been more odors from the mill. And so we've been running more aeration. But even running more aeration nonstop, we're still able to save a lot of power. So. And we should get another check at the end of this year from PUD. I don't know exactly how much that would be, but it was a good project. We've already been approached to do it on the water side. I don't know if there's going to be enough interest from other people, but
when you're talking aeration, you're talking the secondary lagoon, correct? And they're they work to break down the enzymes, basically.
The aeration adds air to the water so the bugs can do their job.
Yes.
You were instrumental in the solar bees in a saving vegetarian issue years ago.
Yes.
And I know Dare just mentioned something about long-term effects. And I have to think back to when the solar beads were instituted in the lagoon. Is that one example of long-term savings over a long period of time?
We've saved a lot of money. I, off the top of my head, I can't tell you how much. I know our payback on that one was 0.8 years. They're anticipating 2.5. And so we paid it off, our portion of the project off in 0.8 years. So we've just been compounding that. I do know that that was through BPA and the Energy Smart Industrial Program. And we did get they paid for 70% of the project. And they gave us a check for $278,000 for that.
Wow. And then can you, for our citizens who are listening to this, can you specifically describe what the solar bees do, what the philosophy is of using that equipment?
Yeah, so our aerators are different than solar bees. The aerators splash water up in the air, come down, add oxygen to the water. The solar bees are simply mixers. So they take water 15 feet deep and push it out across the top. So they're taking that water and they're cycling that oxygen down deeper. So instead of having a zone on the lagoon that is highly efficient for only a foot deep, now we're getting better treatment, 12 to 15 feet deep.
And how are they powered?
By solar power or a trickle charger. So
Thank you.
They've been phenomenal units.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's pertinent information for our citizens who should know that, and especially new citizens who come aboard.
Well, and the biggest question I got from the very get-go is solar power in Oregon. How's that going to work? It works as well as it can. And like I said, it works on a trickle charger. So it runs on a 10 horsepower motor if needed. And,
Thanks.
10 months out of the year, it's not needed.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Our last function of the Public Works Department is the Parks and Recreation. I would like to invite our Parks and Recreation Manager, Shauna Duggan. Shauna, just for the note, she also has been nominated as Employee of the Year and one of our employees who kind of rose up to the ranks. So a lot of great talented individual, and we were able to do a great transition in our department by combining the Parks and Recreation together as one unit and really restructure the entire space over there to bring a lot of that visible achievement to our community. And I'll let Shauna talk to you a little bit about what has been happening and what we are saying today.
Awesome, thanks for having me today. So recreation and Parks and Recreation by the numbers. So we serve over 13 city parks with over 135 acres. We now have 2 recreation facilities, 11 sports fields, and we also maintain things that aren't in the park. So we have 3 other city facilities that we do the groundskeeping on, the library, the police, and the Boise property. We also mow the highway. We have 4 retention ponds that we do the work at, and we have 8 irrigation systems. So it's a lot more than just what you see at the playgrounds in the park area that the staff is maintaining. So the efficiencies that we've brought in since I've been over at the department, and I started there back in April, so this is my first council meeting doing a report as the Parks and Recreation Manager, is utilizing staff where needed. One thing that we've been able to do is provide office staff that's not somebody who is part of the maintenance staff. And so I've been able to take that role on. I've been able to be at the office and connect those folks from our nonprofits, our softball groups, all of those things, and been able to have really good conversations on how we can work better together. We've been able to combine opportunities for grant funding, more streamlined approach for work orders and ordering. So we do have a work order system now. So not that everything's on fire anymore. We can work through on maintaining things, as Mohammed had spoke about, with having a plan for when our weed whackers need to be maintained or our lawnmowers and such. We've had more public outreach with volunteer events and joint programming. Joint effort in creating spaces and programming for citizens. So before, they were 2 separate entities. So recreation did the programming and parks for creating the spaces. Now we're able to work closer together on how that all looks. So this next slide will show you that these are the grants that I've been able to obtain since 2020, 2021. So a total of a little over $226,000. So that's been pretty significant. Some of these things were really streamlined to programming, but there is other things that we were able to also sprinkle in on the park side. And I'm excited to start applying for more grants, especially as we get the master plan updated for our spaces. So a lot of these grants on here, you'll recognize who they're from. We have the Moda Assist on there. We have several Blazer grants. People really like St. Helens and what we're doing out here. So that's been really excited to obtain these. So successes for 21, 22 is building stronger partnerships with our local organizations, nonprofits. Having those partnerships together help create a more sustainable Parks and Recreation division. Having a good relationship with the users that use our parks and hearing from them on what they would like to see and how they could help us. We've onboarded new user-friendly software for both the Parks and Recreation team to communicate and accomplish tasks timely and effectively. Going back to Mohammed's model, if we can't duplicate it, then we're just kind of going in blind every day. So if we know how we got to this point of doing the maintenance, then we can duplicate it again and have this built in. So the efficiencies there is going to be really great. The parks programming piece will start early next month for the maintenance staff to be able to use that part. We have a new community center that is in process of getting some building code updates, and hopefully we'll be able to open that soon. We updated the McCormick Park play structure, as you all know, and that's just been amazing. My office is over at McCormick Park now in the blue building there, and so I'm able to take my breaks and walk the park and go see the kids and stuff over there. And we have folks coming from all over the place to see our facility there, which is really exciting. We've updated the picnic tables. You might have seen the new picnic tables. They're down at the park here and at McCormick Park, and you'll start seeing them appear at other parks. Not only do they look better, but they're going to be easily maintained by us. So we're not going to have to paint picnic tables every year. Instead, we can power wash them, and they just look really nice too. We're able to utilize shared equipment, kind of what Erin was talking about, combining the two departments. Recreation didn't have a truck, and now we're able to use a truck. Parks didn't have a van that we're able to use for things. So utilizing the equipment, staffing, and resources. And one thing I have to say with that is it's really helped the park maintenance staff find their why again and why they're doing the things, because before they might have been cleaning the bathrooms, and that can be a tedious task that you do every day. But when you know that you're doing that to provide a safe opportunity for folks to come and use it and actually get to see those programmings and be involved in them, has really made a big difference. We have been able to create a high value list to see what things that we should have on the list first, what things we should delegate to others, and what things are not right now. We had our first combined activities for the Parks and Recreation program. You'll see the picture on the next slide, but it was a teen service camp. So we were able to provide a week-long free camp to teenagers. I believe it was from 13 to 16 years old. And they worked with the Parks Department to refurbish the baseball benches down at the Little League field at McCormick Park. So now they're painted blue to match the new play set. So it's visually appealing, and they got to work with the park staff, and that was really exciting for the kids and the staff as well. Collaborating projects with service groups that help the Parks and Recreation division to utilize resources effectively. We have tons of service groups, Kiwanis, Lions, all of them that pour a lot of love into our parks, and we're able to collaborate with them a little bit better and see what their vision for things are. And then our strong partnership with the school district for our out of school time activity and spaces is still there. So you'll see here, Cameron is showing the kids how to paint the benches there. So our goals for 21, 22 is to keep that collaboration going to achieve common goals. It's funny, before this presentation, they wanted me to do that or go over this with them at their lunch break. So I was able to present to them, and they were really excited about the things that we were going to talk about today. And this was the park staff that wanted me to do this. Continuing partnerships with local organizations. Look at feasibility of hosting tournaments to generate revenue for the division. So we have a lot of tournament opportunities out here. I've been involved in a lot of tournament stuff with my kids and also as a volunteer, and we have a lot of diverse opportunities that we can bring out here. And creating diverse and safe programs and spaces for all interests, age groups, and abilities. A new parks master plan with extensive community outreach. I think it's really important to go into those parks and find out who's using them. How would they like to use them? What things could we bring there that would be a benefit to that neighborhood? Because not every park needs the same sort of thing or wants the same sort of thing. Business sponsorship opportunities. Businesses are really excited about what we're doing, and I've been able to, just a little bit of outreach we've gotten a lot of sponsorships from that. Adopt a park program and volunteer outreach, increase grant applications and other funding opportunities, and then creating our community wellness hub. So here you'll see the before and after of McCormick Park. The before picture is special to me because I was at that grand opening when my kids were little, and we got a lot of use out of that park. And then the after, of course, is just fantastic. Like, it's so neat what was able to be put in that space. Here's our 5th Street trail improvement. So this is something that happened before I came on board, but I am a big believer in accessibility and connecting neighborhoods to trails and parks. And this is a big component of that. I know a lot of people use this trail, and you can just see what a difference between the two pictures are. And you'll see on the left-hand side, or my left there, that's my little granddaughter. So I'm able to bring her to some of the programmings. And then just some of our other activities. I really believe in the whole school, whole community, whole child approach. And what that means is we have everyone from infants to senior citizens using our services and our spaces. My dream is, and we've only been a rec program since 2018, but as we continue to grow, is those infants one day will work for Parks and Rec in their summer programs and things like that. And we're already seeing some of that. Our tweens are now getting jobs in the summer. We were able to employ 8 community members over the summer and provide opportunities for them to have their first jobs. So that was pretty fun. And I just think, without a strong community, that Parks and Recreation won't be there. And I feel like by providing those safe things that we're able to collaborate with things like the police department and things like that, and maybe the kids will go in a little different direction than maybe they would if they didn't have those opportunities. So that's my.
Great. Thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate your details.
Sean, you forgot something.
Yeah.
You've had a very good cooperative operation of the library system and the schools. You definitely should pat yourself on the back, because when things weren't allowed in the library, you jumped in, and the cooperative between the two groups was very good.
Thank you. Yeah, we definitely, the library, OSU Extension Office, we all kind of went for the model of, instead of focusing what we can't do, let's see what we can do. And we brought a lot of programming to the kids outdoors and adults as well. So we are starting to look at more adult programming and stuff too. That
I like that. That's what I like about the inclusivity of your presentation and making sure that all are welcome.
Well, Mr. Mayor and City Council, with that said, I can tell you there is a lot of amazing things are happening under the Public Works Department. As you see, I wanted to bring some of our frontliners here from our team to speak directly to you about the progress, the amazing projects, and what we have coming out in the future. And I thank you very much for your time. I'll open next for questions, and I just want to let you know I'm very thankful for your support, and I welcome any feedback, positive or negative, on how can we improve and continue this path of success.
I have a comment and a question in a sense, and this is mostly, again, not only my personal gain, but also for our citizens that are listening in, and for matter of public record. I was so impressed with Public Works with your system master plans. Getting the master plan together, your transportation system master plan in particular. With the advent of what's happening federally with our federal administration and our current administration, wanting to go ahead with a multi-billion dollar infrastructure program. We don't know where that's going to go now, but the talk about it is interesting to me. With that, we have been told in this council chambers over and over and over again by our state representatives, some of our federal legislators as well, as don't even think about an overpass. It isn't going to happen in our lifetime. I'm not so sure about that. So what I wanted to do is just as long as you're doing a master plan, what's the hurt or what's the damage of just putting in a plan, a sketch plan of a possible overpass over the railroad and onto Highway 30? What's wrong with that? And I can tell you what's right with it, because if we do that and all of a sudden there's monies for transportation, we have it in our master plan, bingo, that's how it happens. If we don't have it in our master plan, we're in the back seat. So that's just my input. And so one of the things that one other thing that I just want to ask, and you could enlighten us, is what kind of process do you go through when you are designing or completing or creating your goals or strategic goals? Who does that? How does it work? If you could explain that to our citizens, I think that would help a lot of us, not only this council, but our citizens as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Council President Morgan, for your question. Number one, I can tell you on the overpass, what we're told you know, I can tell you the opposite, right? Nothing is impossible, right? There is no one-way street for any problem. There's always a solution. Is what level of efforts and energy you put into making that happen, right? There is a lot of opportunities for infrastructure, billions of dollars, close to a $2 trillion package coming out. I can tell you, I'm willing to go as far as going to Washington, D.C. to get some of that funding for our project. But without a master plan in place with defining all this stuff, it's very hard to ask for this type of services and support from federal government. So we are working towards that, and we're going to continue that path as we move forward, or at least from my perspective and in my role at the city is to do whatever it takes to accommodate everything the city and the citizen needs. On the front of how do we plan, I can speak for myself on how I look at the process of planning for the entire Public Works Department and having multiple departments with all their challenges and all their requirements and resources needs. I follow this model that I talked about here, a lot of area, the continuous improvement plan, and I can share this with you here in 1 second, if I may. This particular right here. So you have to start by evaluating, right? In order to make an informed decision, you have to dig deep into the details. You have to look at existing conditions, plan accordingly, and follow best practices. Project management. 5 steps to implement any kind of goal: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and closeout. Closeout being the last phase, once everything works well. And throughout that process, you evaluate risks, opportunities, and on all kind of challenges, right? One area I looked at as a leader in the Department of Public Works, I look at coaching. It's very important to bring. My role is to evaluate our team members' strengths and weaknesses and look at where we can improve. How can we push that next leader and evaluate them and bring them up to something by providing resources, opportunities, a lot of coaching. And you can see there is a talent. Sometimes that individual doesn't have all the factors, whether it's education or 20 years of experience in engineering or whatnot. There is multiple factors that plays a role into bringing that decision up. And then once you evaluate and you come out with those data that you need to make that informed decision, you start the implementation of the structure. You bring those and you put a good plan in place. There's processes for everything, and that's how you can succeed, right? You try this, it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. Let's try plan B. If that doesn't work, maybe that's not a good fit, and so forth. And implementation is very important. Once you make these analysis and the data and the numbers, you have that data and then you implement and take actions. And from there, it doesn't stop. This is a continuous improvement. As you can see here, you're gonna continue. It's a living thing, right? Someone succeed, they gotta have to continue learning and continue doing good. It doesn't stop there. And that's my leadership style, my philosophy, and my.
Thank you for explaining that in detail. I appreciate it.
Yeah, very
Our
well.
citizens appreciate it.
I just want to applaud you for impeccable leadership, your whole team, every one of you. So thank you guys.
Thank you very much, Councilor Chong. I appreciate it. Means the world to me, really. As I said, we work and we serve the pleasure of the city council and mayor and the citizen of the city of St. Helens, and we're gonna continue doing what we can do best.
Yes, and we can see Public Works folks to repair the plaza at this time and seeing that go, to see that go on. I want to thank the engineering department too, Sharon. Actually, one of the new ramps went in at just up the block from my house in South 14th in Cowlitz. And I appreciate that because sometimes I walk along distractedly at that corner and there was a significant.
It was about 9 inches.
Yeah, there's been a number of times when I
Councilor
was
Berkeley, you fell
fortunate,
off the.
well, fortunate not to twist my ankle or something. So that was really great to see how that goes on. So just great work with that. And where are the retention ponds that Parks and Rec takes care of? Where are those ponds?
They're actually located throughout the city. So I think there's one over, I'm sorry, I don't
Okay, but they're.
know exactly.
No,
what it is.
I should have said that. That's
They
what I
have
should've-
showed them to me and I actually
Okay,
did my
no,
first.
but
week
they're-
back.
they're-
Yeah.
Okay, just for storm.
There's one, there's one on like Helens Way.
Yeah, okay, and it's just, okay, so they're not in the parks.
No, they're not in the parks. They're like in residential lake areas, yeah.
Okay, sorry, okay, good. No, that was one I actually should have thrown at Mohammed. I was trying
You can
to.
take a field trip.
I was gonna do that, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, I do, and so, but no, it actually, Mohammed, my only question to you then is so on the organizational chart, we've got the separate water filtration, water treatment, that's gonna be.
Correct, and that has
Yeah.
not happened because we are still in the hybrid model evaluation phase, which has worked extremely well, and we highlighted the efficiencies. We were planning to implement this officially very soon. We're actually working on that right now. And should come out to you session sometimes in the near future for a finalize, but we wanted to kind of introduce the benefits first and show you kind of.
It makes a lot of sense, and I want to say here again, thank you to Aaron for the hosting the tour of the facilities, the water treatment, the filtration. Yeah, just really eye-opening and very good work. Appreciate the work that's going on there as well. So yeah, we've got a great public works department. Good things happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions?
Two comments.
Yes, sir.
One, you showed redoing the curve over at St. Helens and Fourth Street, kind of out in the hinterlands. The amount of traffic that comes down Old Portland Road into the area is surprising. And it's really good that the people in their strollers and everything can get through there. But there's almost nothing around there when you just look at it, but the amount of people that walk through there is quite high, traffic's very high on that one. Through on overpasses, there's gonna be a picture, I think it's in the Chronicle today, of a overpass over by where Burger King is, I guess, not Burger King, Burgerville, of a railroad train going over another railroad train. We can do overpasses here. Let's do it again.
I'll do it. Thank you, Council.
I like, actually, your underpass, take the train underground, I like that idea.
Like tunnels?
Yeah, I like that, have the train go up. Yeah, just great job, Mohammed, leadership, to the staff, that you guys are team players and it makes a big difference, and nobody likes change. But what I hear is you've adapted to a lot of changes and you've saved the city a lot of money and also made it more efficient, which is getting more productivity out of it. Not only did you save a huge cost, you also created more productivity for our citizens, which you guys get to put your name on as well. So I appreciate each and every one of your efforts. Applaud you.
Thank
And
you.
Aaron is very charismatic when you get over there and he starts taking you through it. I can see why you were so enthralled with the sewage treatment. You have to have the opportunity to go over there, do it.
I heard about it early, I think I know now.
Just watching the words I used to describe.
Yeah.
Great.
Very, very good job.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, strategic action plan updates, Matt.
So I just have one thing for the council I'm going to hand out to you. These are the poll results from the question that we've been pushing out to the community regarding priorities for elections. And so it was asked by Council Berkeley last meeting to provide the comments that were all included. There's a range of comments on a variety of topics not associated with Berkeley. So as of right now, we have Jordan Ramos's office working on the code amendments that were reviewed by you a little while ago, and that included the code amendments to change to a majority vote rule for the elections. So with that in mind, based on the survey and what your thoughts are, we would like to continue moving forward on that if the council would like to.
How many people answered? Sorry,
Actually, 100 people exactly.
100. Yeah. Okay.
I've got a comment on that we haven't discussed prior. And that is, I've been on this council, and there was a period of a 3-year process where 2 council members passed away. They had to be replaced. And the whole idea of, okay, the council coming together, discussing, okay, how are we going to replace these individuals? Are we going to go to an election process? Do we appoint? What does the charter say? How can we do it? What's our flexibilities and all of that? To me, this new system of looking at popular vote of council, it would be automatic. It would be, you would reach the person who had the second best votes in a prior election. And so I see a lot of simplicity in that, where we had a lot of confusion in the past and some political kinds of outcries of who we were going to appoint and who, fairness and all of that. So this, I believe, provides a better accountability, the popular vote, and then selecting the first, second, third. It provides a much better accountability, and I don't think we talked about that at all as we were looking at it. So I just wanted to speak for that as the council. If someone does pass, what do we do? Or if they quit, or if something happens, how do we do it? Well, we could just simply appoint the next person on the got the most votes if they are willing to serve.
I would speak against that. Well, you finish and then.
Go ahead.
The reason I'd be against that is we have 10 people who ran and we have number 1 and 2. 2 years later, somebody passes. The situation why we would pick somebody in the community has changed. And the 8 people who ran for a particular group of things. Now that group of things is different. And I think having somebody who's basically been interested in the past be put in with a new situation, I think would be detrimental.
So you would want to go through an entire new election, is that correct?
Well, right now, I think we go through an election after a certain period of time and there's an appointment time.
That's right.
So I think it becomes time sensitive for the passing from when the election was.
That's correct.
So maybe,
And unless you've been through that, it's a bit of a dogfight.
but
And
as I
it's
said,
very, very political.
oh, yeah. Well, elections are political anyway.
No, not in terms of appointing your friends.
Oh,
That is,
okay.
that's what I mean.
Oh, yeah, that part of it is, but there's now, we'll say in the first 2 years, the relative things of what got the people elected are probably still in place. So it makes more sense there. I agree with the politics.
Okay.
After that halfway point, the things could be quite different, and I think then you would need a different slate.
I understand what you're saying, and I just wanted to make my point clear.
Yeah. Well, I think we got both halves of that.
Good.
So that appointment would be an influencing factor perhaps, but not an automatic kind of thing.
Exactly.
You still have to go through a process of appointing somebody.
Exactly.
That'd be one of the weightings that you would use in your evaluation process, potentially.
Well, I think Doug's point is the replacement method ought to be very well outlined before you make a change in your election laws.
There would need to be some changes.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, yeah. Well, that should be outlined before.
So the comments, I see one actually really lengthy one. It actually makes some key points that, and we kind of already have this where we oversee departments, but we are not in charge of those departments because it should be up to the city administrator or manager. The number 41, the longest one. Amazing how many people are for the police on this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did the chief take the survey a few times or what?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean,
More
that is-
police, more police.
That is great.
We're hiring.
And of course, it doesn't reflect the votes because the votes are gonna be more than 100, right?
There were 100 people that actually voted.
Oh, you're right, okay.
Only
100,
45 of them left a comment of some sort. So, and I should note when you reference number 41, that the city of St. Helens does have districts and boards already set up. They're not very well known, or they're difficult to find even on the county maps. But it's really a funky layout. And personally not something that staff wanted to bring forward because it's a little bit funky.
As a statistician, I think these numbers are too small to even.
So, I mean.
I will say, as far as outreach, Crystal did a lot of pushing through Facebook. We can't pay to promote this type of polling activity because it has to deal with elections on Facebook. However, we can do as much pushing as we can on social media as far as here is the not paid advertisements, as well as the advertisements that we did in the Chronicle, as well as the monthly listings out there. To 100 people is for this type of question, I think is pretty representative of those that really take the time and care to look after their local government.
But I think it's statistically, it's not that important. I agree with what you said, and getting 3 people in this town to do anything on time is a job and a half. So the difficulty and the comments are one thing, the statistical reliability is another thing.
There's 2 comments that I wanted to point out. The issue should be reassessed as the city grows. I like that. And then number 25, I would be curious what the League of Oregon Cities and other professional organizations recommend. Please share this and guidance with our current elected officials.
Now you have something to round table maybe coming up soon.
After attending all the League of Oregon Cities conventions every year that I've been on, that I can tell you without a doubt that it's a unbelievable majority of advocating for a city manager. And they found problems otherwise. I think we were one of the only cities other than outside of Portland that had a commission form of government that we were on until we implemented our policy of operating our government under somewhat of a managerial operation standard.
And him and the supervisor can make decisions.
Exactly.
Yes. That's what we thought.
And as you mentioned as well, that this process of voting is in your municipal code. It's not necessarily in the charter. So it is somewhat easily adaptable in the future if the council decides to make a change.
Yep. So, the one question I had, Matt, you mentioned that this was referenced or looked at in code revisions we had previously considered or seen was.
Correct. There was a previous council meeting, I want to say last month or so, and there were a large handful of chapter 2 revisions that myself, Rachel, John, and Kathy reviewed, had amendments for you. And those are currently being looked at with Jordan Ramos's office to do any kind of final touch-ups and everything before it comes back for first and second reading.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I remember seeing that. I wasn't sure which. Okay, thanks.
If you'll remember that this was the meeting where Bill Monahan gave some great examples of the pros and cons.
Right.
Of
Okay.
the
Right. Right. That we did have that discussion at that time. Originally, okay. Yeah.
We can basically take these with us and we're not,
This is not an executive session, so you are
Yeah.
free to take this home with you or.
Pull it over and.
Correct. And
Yeah.
like I said, the code amendments will come back to
Yes.
after the attorneys for approval.
Cause everybody's studying it like we're gonna answer tonight.
I was reading it while they were talking, I didn't even hear anything.
Is that it for, all right, city administrator's report?
Right. Public Works report today was a real kind of a moment of pride here for just showing with all the great work that great staff, great people that we have this organization. They look at the other, the police is just fantastic. The library, our utility, community development staff, there's a lot of good work going on, and super proud of that. So, but I wanted to take a minute and go through the regular session agenda tonight, just to talk about things. Usually, purpose of a work session is to talk about things. So some of these are pretty agreement with PUD tonight. This is final reading, which is something we were working on for a long time and finally got in place, and I think we have that ironed out. There's 2 resolutions that are pretty process oriented here. The as far as declaring city property, you go through a process of declaring surplus, and that's not used for the city to use. So regulations do that. You're also authorizing the sale and establishing my authority to transact into the signing. Done. For the authorized for signature, we have an agreement with ODOT. And this is something that seems kind of odd at its face, is that we give ODOT $100 and they give us 94 cents back. And after the first year, it's going to be 90 cents back. And the reason that we do that and this exchange of funds is and take the discount is because when we take we get federal money for a project, that money, if we put that money with any federal money with another source of state or local funds, it all becomes federalized money, and it's subject to all kinds of wage and hour, all kinds of reporting, and it's it can be 20% increase in cost for projects. So the state has set up this bank that they have a bigger bridge project or something like that you can basically trade that money in and get money out, and then not have to circumvent some of the federal requirements there.
Okay.
So that's what that's about.
So it's our state's way of diverting.
It happens everywhere. They set up these exchanges, and it's the amount of reporting can be just daunting.
Yeah. If anybody else's chair not go back, or do this mine? Yeah. So what?
There's a
No. Oh, put it out. Well, fine.
You keep going.
There we go.
Totally
Yeah,
distracted.
we were, that was.
Thank you, John Wall.
We're all-
Well, I've been sitting like this the whole time. Yeah, some saying stuff.
We have and we've just been working this past week on the scope of work, extending the scope of work with, and we've already entered into agreement with OTAC to do these design services, but we have this next work order. We're doing work order pieces just as we get more clarity with the project. We're refining the scope of work and we're moving forward. That work was in your on for approval tonight. And some of what we've been talking about internally, we're a little bit concerned about the project cost estimates and the desire to build something that we have to go back and change in the future or tear out and spend money to build that. So we're trying to really move stepwise, going from point of what we know is pretty clear to maybe a little bit less clear. And is, when we start at the downtown here and head south, first 2 blocks, we were pretty confident we get to 100% design and construction of those 2 blocks. And then the strategy we've been talking about is from the 12th intersection, it was pretty far down, but staircase there, going to 90% design on that improvement right there. And at that point, we're going to go out, back out, look for developers again, see what the market, what the plans they might have, and then we can kind of re-engage with that. But still moving forward, just moving forward, kind of extending the downtown towards Plymouth and steps.
The reason being that is because we don't know where future developer or development's gonna happen. So
Where the mid-
why put in sidewalks and all that?
Driveway cuts,
Worn
you
out.
can put in utility stubs, just taking a guess.
Yeah.
All of it, street lighting, everything could be just.
A master developer could say, nope, move this, move that, move this, move that, which is there, but it still costs money.
Still doing the bluff trail, still working on the extension line of the Riverwalk. But and achieving all the project goals, there's still public access, there's still the view corridors, there's all the things we're doing. We want to.
And really, potentially, it would be probably more likely the builder who would incur the cost of the future 10%.
And then a lot of times it is, you can transfer those costs onto the developer and they can do it at less of an expense than we can.
Exactly.
And,
Part of the negotiating.
part of
price.
negotiation.
Yep, part of the negotiating.
That makes sense. I think that's consistent with my conversations with residents about what we are doing is we're guaranteeing the public access along the Riverfront Trail. We're extending the road and guaranteeing those things, but everything that's going in between, we don't know. And it much will depend upon who we can attract as a developer, whether we go the master developer route. And I think most people seem to understand that the thing people want is access to the river and being able to have another way in and out of the area.
And parking.
And parking, well, sure, but I'm thinking that's also though, that's what I'm saying is that's what we don't have. Boom, definitely, we haven't made any definite decisions assuring people we're still in the process of looking at all the possibilities, but we are guaranteeing public access. Waterfront and along the way.
Do we have any bites from a master developer?
Oh. Do that go out this year. But it does design and construct 100% of the utility access, the water, the sewer, probably, the worst thing is to come in and build a street, then come back and cut the road up and dig the utility, the sewer connections and all this, and we don't want to have to cut some of the street.
But we've had 2 people that are familiar with doing master developments that have showed interest in the property.
Yeah, all of the developers who interviewed had some level of interest in the property.
We still have a big gray elephant in the room, the connector plant. How are we gonna get people from 30 down here? We have an industrial park, you've got heavy industrial traffic. You've got a lot of apartments here, you've got a lot of street traffic. if you got other things down here, you've got the supply, traffic. And the present connected plan doesn't allow for much more than a small amount of residential traffic.
So I agree that when we connect that Plymouth, that there's a whole new.
And that theoretically, that will be the main way into town.
So what we're doing on that on a different front right now is working on a EDA application, grant application. It's supposed to be well capitalized this year. And for the Gable Road project, the riverfront connector from at least from Gable to the business park, if not further, a little bit further south. So
Is that the same one we've applied for a couple times?
no,
Okay,
it's
that's a different.
Yeah. Different grant. Everything, there's so much money. Mohammed was alluding to all the money that's coming online here, and a lot of it's for transportation, and we're trying to get her.
That fits good.
Both parties agree on a $2 trillion infrastructure, but we'll see about the other three that they're falling over that could destroy that field.
Is there any update on the hospital property?
We asked them to.
I have an update in executive session.
Oh, okay.
Talk about it.
You have any more on that?
Just that joint planning commission meeting on the 22nd. And I don't know if everybody's heard the League of Oregon Cities. Yes, it's canceled. They're not doing an electronic option. So it's just canceled. It's no virtual kind of thing, which.
Ooh, make certain we cancel our hotel reservation.
Yeah,
We're stuck, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I already took the days off from work,
Yeah,
so.
so sure that the dock enforcement is something that I've really taken to heart, and yes, Mr. Mason, I got his email as well and just didn't get to it. But I have been going out every morning, taking pictures of the docks to see who's there. I'm tracking that. Our courts are going to be willing to take that as far as ticketing those with the one officer that can actually go on the docks to do that. And okay, so we're looking at kiosks, looking at things we can do, and it's really frustrating because there's 4 or 5 of them down there right now that have been there for.
The pressure of that, as you start looking all the way to the other end of the Multnomah Channel, that pressure's starting to build. It's getting bad, and it's coming this way.
It's not gonna get any better, for sure. That's what we're working on.
Yeah, we get some trained beavers.
Yeah, one of the things we learned recently is that most from the ring board that St. Helens is the only docks that aren't enforced by somebody else, their own police. So mostly it's the ports or the sheriff's office with they're supporting sheriffs, not supporting police necessarily. Or that's not intended to be as excuse, just a fact, but we're still working on solutions. So, and Centennial Chambers doing their Centennial building thing this weekend, and Saturday, Charlie 1 to 6, Social Hour 5 to 7. Halloween is kicking off. Working on goal setting with Rachel and I, and sitting down with next year's community survey and the kind of thing, trying to get back and data out of our community with the target.
All right, with that, we will be going into we're gonna cut out, but we're gonna be going into executive session or F1926602E real property transaction and age consulting with counsel, potential litigation. And we are adjourned.
6 o'clock session tonight.
7.
Okay, I was on the way here.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Do you need him on the executive session?
How much do we have? Should we take a break?